A Tuscarora's mother will be in court this morning, accused of drowning her 4-year-old son at Atwood Lake.
On the morning of August 23, 2025, the still waters of Atwood Lake, Ohio, became the scene of an unthinkable tragedy. A 40-year-old Amish mother, Ruth Miller, gathered her 4 children and walked to the shoreline. Hours later, only 3 of them would come home alive. According to investigators, Ruth believed she was following a divine command, a twisted interpretation that would lead her to drown her 4-year-old son and attempt to harm her teenage children before bystanders intervened. Her husband, tragically, had also died that same morning under similar circumstances. Now, Ruth sits in custody, charged with aggravated murder and child endangerment. Prosecutors say her actions were deliberate. Her defense argues she was mentally unstable, recently released from psychiatric care, and an entire community is left grappling with how faith, tragedy, and untreated illness collided in the worst possible way. This is the story of Ruth Miller, the Amish mother who shocked her community and left a nation asking how something like this could happen. The Amish of Ohio live by traditions that go back centuries. Their lives are simple, built around family, faith, and community. In Carroll County, where the Miller family lived, neighbors knew them as quiet, private, and devoted to their way of life. Ruth Miller, 40 years old, was a mother of 4. To the outside world, her family looked like any other Amish household: modest clothes, horse-drawn buggies, and long days spent working the land. But inside that home, there were struggles no one else could see. Family members later revealed that Ruth had been battling her mental health. She had recently spent time in a psychiatric facility and, according to court records, was released just days before the tragedy at Atwood Lake. Ruth's husband, too, carried a heavy burden. On the same day as the lake incident, he was found drowned in what investigators believe was a separate but connected act of desperation. The Miller household, once filled with the laughter of 4 children, had become a place of grief and confusion. Neighbors were left stunned. One man said, "We never imagined something like this in our community. It's not the Amish way." For a society built on faith and trust, the events of that day shattered more than just one family. They shook an entire tradition. Court filings revealed Ruth believed she was following a divine message, that she needed to be swallowed by a fish to prove her worthiness. It was a disturbing glimpse into a mind clouded by delusion, where faith and illness became dangerously tangled. Her attorney would later argue she was in no state to make rational decisions, pointing to her recent release from medical care as a failure of the system meant to protect her and her children. By August 23rd, Ruth's inner struggles had reached a breaking point. She gathered her children, teenagers, and her youngest, just 4 years old, and led them to the calm waters of Atwood Lake. What began as a quiet morning walk would soon turn into a scene of chaos and heartbreak. It was a Saturday morning, August 23rd, 2025. The surface of Atwood Lake shimmered quietly, the kind of calm that usually drew families for picnics or fishing trips. But for the Miller family, the waters would soon bear witness to something no one could have imagined. Ruth Miller arrived at the lake with her 4 children, 3 teenagers and her youngest, a little boy just 4 years old. To anyone watching, it may have looked like a simple family outing. But inside Ruth's mind, something far darker was unfolding. According to bystanders, Ruth led her children into the shallow waters, urging them deeper. The teenagers hesitated, confused by their mother's behavior. One recalled her saying something about needing to be tested by God, a phrase that made no sense in that terrifying moment. Then, in a chilling turn, Ruth allegedly pushed her youngest into the water and held him there. The teenagers screamed, trying to intervene, but they too soon found themselves struggling as their mother forced them toward the depths. Nearby, families heard the cries and rushed to the scene. Several bystanders jumped into the water, pulling the teenagers free from their mother's grasp. Others tried desperately to rescue the 4-year-old boy. Despite every effort, it was too late. The child could not be revived. The teenagers, traumatized but alive, were taken to safety. Witnesses later told investigators that, if not for the quick action of strangers, all of the children might have been lost that morning. Authorities arrived within minutes. Ruth Miller was taken into custody at the scene, calm but disoriented. Officers reported she spoke of divine instructions and proving worthiness. To investigators, it was clear this was not an accident, but a deliberate act carried out under the weight of a fractured mind. She was charged with aggravated murder and child endangerment, facing the possibility of life in prison. As news spread, the community was left in shock. How could a mother known for devotion to her children commit such an act? And how could warnings about her fragile state of mind have been missed? Ruth Miller was booked into the Carroll County Jail and quickly became the center of one of the most shocking cases in Ohio's recent history. Prosecutors charged her with aggravated murder for the death of her 4-year-old son, along with multiple counts of child endangerment for her attempts against her older children. Her attorney signaled early on that the defense would argue not guilty by reason of insanity. They pointed to Ruth's recent release from a psychiatric facility as evidence that she was never truly stable enough to be unsupervised. According to legal experts, her state of mind will be the central issue at trial, whether she understood the nature of her actions or if mental illness had completely overtaken her. For the Amish community, this tragedy struck at the very core of their values. The Amish are known for their strong families, simple faith, and reliance on each other. To lose a child in such a way, and at the hands of his own mother, left neighbors devastated. Community leaders asked for privacy and prayer, reminding outsiders that even in the most devout and insulated communities, tragedy can find its way in. Vigils were held not just for the lost child, but for the surviving siblings who now carry a trauma far beyond their years. Oh, one local resident said softly, "We believe in forgiveness, but how do you forgive something like this? Only God can answer that." The case of Ruth Miller is more than just another crime story. It is a painful reminder of the intersection between faith, mental illness, and family. It shows how untreated struggles can spiral into devastation, and how a community built on peace can be shaken to its very core. For the surviving children, the road ahead is long. For the community, the question remains: what signs were missed, and could this tragedy have been prevented? This is the story of Ruth Miller, the Amish mother whose walk to the lake ended in heartbreak. A reminder that even in the most peaceful of places, darkness can find a way in, and that behind closed doors, struggles we cannot see may be building toward tragedy.